Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started and let people join us as they are able to. We've had quite a few number of people that have registered. So I wanted to welcome everybody for joining our question and answer session that we have available. This session was set up to really give you an opportunity to ask questions if you have already taken a look at our website. If not, I'm going to take you on a tour of our website just to give you a quick understanding of what our grant program is all about. And then really just open it up to questions from you all. We found that it's very helpful for individuals that are participating. Sometimes somebody else might think of asking a question that you didn't know that you wanted to ask or were afraid to ask. So it's been helpful that we've had more people on these calls rather than me try and do one-on-one times with individuals. So my name is Sharon Geisler, and I am the Workforce Development Training Program Manager. And I oversee this grant and have a team of individuals that help me work through the grant applications and processes and contracts. And so they are also knowledgeable and able to answer your questions. And so we do have some designated email addresses that I'm going to share with you. And so sending an email question, anybody on my team will be able to get back with you. And if you want specific questions that you'd like to have some one-on-one time set up where we can talk about your situation, we are happy to do that as well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with an overview of our website. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you could just nod or give me a thumbs up that you're able to see this screen, that would be helpful. Okay, great. So our website, I'll go ahead and get them. Our website is actually found at the Department of Workforce Services website. So the easiest way to remember really is dws.wyo.gov. And I'm going to go ahead and put that into our chat. Navigate them. There we go. We'll go ahead and get those people in with us. All right. So the Department of Workforce Services has a website where all of the different programs that they offer are within that. And then if you scroll down, you're able to see that we are right here underneath the main page, Workforce Development Training Fund. So if you do go to that page, I'm going to also include this in our chat just so that you can access it directly, easily. Okay. And then here you will find information regarding the different grants that are under this program. We also have some information here. This is where you all went to register for this Q&A. My plan is to offer this twice a month. And so we're going to be getting the December 20th session up here in the next few days, and we'll have that available. And so you are certainly welcome to do more than one Q&A if you hear information today and want to have time to process that and then come back onto another question and answer session. You are certainly able to do that. And if you have other businesses or other people that you work with or talk to that would benefit from hearing this information, please direct them to our website and they can register based on a time and a date that works for them. If you want to go back and see previously viewed recordings, we do have that accessibility here. And you'll see that we started recording these and saving them back in October, and we have the ones for November as well. So that is certainly an option that if you aren't able to join the live session, you can go back and take a look at what's already been recorded. We have some further information down below that tells you just a little bit of information about the program itself and the different grants that are available. We have a fun little video clip for you to watch. And then you'll hear me during some of the grants talking about preferred industries. And I did want to let you know that they are the preferred industries, but don't necessarily rule out any other industries. Really, any Wyoming business that meets the eligibility criteria is able to participate with these grants. These preferred industries are set by the Wyoming Workforce Development Council, and they have identified these industries based on the next gen partnerships that have been set up here in Wyoming and the industries that they want to highlight, to grow, to support at this point in time. I do have a question in the chat. You are more than welcome to put any questions into the chat. And then, as I said, after I take you through the tour of our website and give you some high-level information, we'll open it up and people can raise their hand or put it in chat, and we'll really have just an open forum. Okay, so you'll also notice that we actually are housed under the Business Training and Support Unit here under the Department of Workforce Services. The Workforce Development Training Fund is one of the programs under this unit. We also have a main number here that you are certainly welcome to call with any questions that you might have. And this is one of the email addresses that are available generally for any of the program, any of the grant information. I have another email that is specifically for internships. I'm going to put both of them in here in the chat for you. We have that one, and then we have DWS-Wdtf at internship at wyo.gov. Okay, it looks like I'm responding to just Ruth instead of, let's see, DWS. So that's one, and then we'll do the other one here. Okay, so those are our two designated emails. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat while we're talking. See if there's anything else. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do the quick tour, and then I'll come back and I'll take a look at the questions that are in here. All right, when you go to this website, you'll see over here on the left-hand side, we have direct links for the different grant options that are available in this program. Wyoming Grown is another one of the programs that is under the Business Training and Support Unit, and Y Quality Counts. And so if you click on those, it'll give you a little bit of information about those programs as well. We'll go ahead and start just at the top here and work our way down. So we do have an apprenticeship grant that is available. This grant is available to registered apprenticeship programs here in Wyoming, and or the related instruction provider that's going to be providing the supplemental instruction to that registered apprenticeship program. Registered apprenticeship programs have 5 different components, and one of them is on-the-job learning that they're going to get from a mentor. Another component is that they're going to get classroom or theoretical learning, and that typically involves extra expenses, and that's what this grant is able to cover, is the cost of the tuition, the registration. Sometimes it can help cover the instructor's wages, class materials, travel, those types of things that would be an expense to the business for having that apprenticeship program. There are different ways to look at that grant in regards to the time period that you would like the grant to help with those expenses. And I can certainly meet with the businesses to help think through what makes the most sense for them for the time frame that those expenses they're wanting to cover, whether it's a semester, whether it's an entire year, maybe it's a group, a cohort that's working their way through together. And so we can help you think through what makes the most sense for the business, and then what the grant allows in regards to the time period, and then what those expenses are going to look like within that time period. As I indicated, that this is for the registered apprenticeship programs, and the apprentices are registered with the Department of Labor. Your registered apprenticeship program is registered with the Department of Labor, and it is those designated apprentices that we're looking at going through the training and the expenses for that. Sometimes businesses are set up to where if they lose an apprentice, they're able to replace that individual with another apprentice, and those expenses can then just continue being applied to that. But sometimes you guys are in a situation where there's a level of experience that they're having to work through, and if you lose one apprentice, what does that look like in regards to replacing them? Since those are some individual conversations that we're happy to have with you to think through all of that. We do try and post the rules for each of the grants within this section. And so here are the rules for the apprenticeship grant. And then we also have some forms, the application that you would go in and download and then complete. If you're a training provider and you're partnering with those employer partners, there's some information for those employers, and then some documentation that we provide for the final report review and reimbursement components. We did just have National Apprenticeship Week, and so we do like to celebrate here in Wyoming the growth of the apprenticeship programs here. And we have an individual, Ivy Moore, who is here with the Department of Workforce Services that helps work with businesses to get you set up with apprenticeships and to have any technical assistance that you might need. So she's a really good resource to talk to regarding anything apprenticeship focused. We'll move down here to the business training grants. This is one of the more popular and longer running grant options that have been available. And this is available to Wyoming businesses that are looking to help continue their employees that they currently are working with them obtain training. If it's a technical skill set that they need and they're getting a certificate from that, or if it's to correct a skill deficiency, any type of training that would be beneficial to your employee for their role or occupation within your industry, we're certainly able to look at most of that training, and it is eligible for this grant. You are not able to ask for lodging or to cover meals, those expenses, but we can cover travel, we can cover the cost of the training, if there's class materials or fees involved with the training. If there is a certification or a license at the end of that training and there's a cost to that, and it's all included in the time frame in the application, we can certainly look at that. So generally, it's the way to think about it is if you have existing employees, this grant is good to help get additional training for them. We do have some frequently asked questions posted and some helpful hints under this grant that we've been able to accumulate. And that's really what we're doing with this Q&A is we're starting to collect some of the frequently asked questions for the other grants as well, and then hopefully be able to get them posted to help you do some of your research ahead of time. Those that like to take a look at all this and be knowledgeable and be able to get as much as they can from the website, we want to try and put that information up here for you. We have an internship grant that is fairly new. We rolled this out back in actually in the pandemic, and it was very well received because this is a grant that can help reimburse for wages for bringing on interns into your business to help you with your workforce. The idea behind this is that it's an opportunity that an individual can go and get a on-the-job work experience and really learn about that industry and learn about that business and decide if that's something that maybe they want to learn more about or continue with their schooling or just have that work experience that they can put on their resume. It's meant to help the businesses with some short-term workforce needs. And then a lot of times the business will turn around and actually hire the intern after they have completed their internship and bring them on as a full-time employee. So that's always been a success story from our perspective. There is an application here that you would download and complete. It's in a PDF format right now. We are currently working on getting it set up in a Google form that would be accessible for businesses to go in and complete a Google form rather than having to do this PDF. And we do have the rules posted here as well of what's eligible and what this internship, the intent of the grant is for. We do have a grant reimbursement form that will be utilized because we are able to reimburse for those wages as the internship is happening. And so after you've paid them some pay stubs, we don't want to do anything less than monthly because we don't want to do it on a weekly basis. We just have too many that are happening for us to be able to process them on a weekly basis. But if you pay your interns, you know, in the middle of the month and the end of the month, or if you pay them all at the end of the month, or if you have at least 2 or 3 pay stubs that you can put together as one reimbursement submission, then you would use this form to go about doing that. When you are applying for the internship grant, one of the rule changes that we did for this is we did increase the dollar amount that's available to reimburse for those wages. Previously, we were reimbursing up to $12 an hour, and now we're able to reimburse up to $25 an hour. But what we're asking is what the wages that you want to pay your intern, you do have to provide some supporting documentation to indicate that that's a typical wage or a reasonable wage for that intern. There's a couple of resources here to help you with that knowledge. And just for example, we'll go through ONET really quick. Just to give you an idea of what the average wage in Wyoming is for that role. And then that's what makes sense for us to be able to reimburse. It's if you need to pay higher than that, you definitely have to give us some supporting understanding and knowledge of why you're wanting to pay them more than that average wage. A lot of times businesses pay less, but it gives you a starting point to work with. So for example, if we wanted to, say I was a finance company and wanted to bring on an intern for a bookkeeping role, I could go to ONET and then I could type in the bookkeeping as a general idea of what that role is going to be. Some businesses here in Wyoming aren't able to find the exact role that they're wanting to offer an internship for. But if you could find something that's close to or similar, just to kind of get an idea about those wages, that helps us know what that would look like as well. So once I typed in bookkeeping up here, it now gives me different options and ways to maybe narrow down that search. I'm going to go ahead and go to this bookkeeping, accounting, auditing clerk section just to get started. And it gives me a description of what that job looks like and if that's a good fit for what I'm thinking my intern's going to do. I'm going to scroll down to the section where it will allow me to look for wages. You do want to select Wyoming, and we do understand that sometimes there's a role or a position that may not be available in Wyoming, and you would have to just give us that understanding or that knowledge and then maybe find a similar state for the wages. But typically if you go to Wyoming and then put your search in, you'll be able to find something or some information regarding that. So I put in Wyoming and I'm going to hit go. You have the option of annual wages or hourly wages. We do ask that you select hourly. And then here's what it's looking like is that for an average job position for bookkeeping, Wyoming is paying about $18 an hour. Now we understand that, you know, interns can come with different skill sets. Maybe you're bringing somebody brand new who's never done any type of work like this. Maybe you're going to be paying them on the lower wage end here. Maybe you're bringing in a college student who's had several years of financial education and maybe has identified bookkeeping as their career choice, and they might be a little bit more skilled. Maybe it would make sense that you're paying them the $18 or maybe even a little bit more based on what you see that role evolving into. We really look towards that average wage as our supporting documentation of what makes sense for us to be able to reimburse, but we're also willing to work with you and get a good understanding if it's different than that. We do ask that you would take a snapshot of this information, and this could serve as your supporting documentation for the wage that you're looking to pay your intern. Okay, so then you are able to have up to, one of the other changes that we made to the internship grant is previously businesses maxed out with 3 internships, but that was also based on the number of employees that they had. We really wanted to make sure that a business had the capacity of their staff, that they would have, those interns would have good mentorship and would have somebody that they could go to with questions, and that they would be guided and trained in those roles. We have increased that up to 6 internships in a fiscal year, 6 active internships in a year. But we're also asking that you are able to show that you can support that, and you can give those interns the appropriate mentorship. If it's a one-man operation, do they have the bandwidth and the capacity to support 6 interns? Maybe not, maybe they only need 1 or 2. And so that is the other piece that changed for the internship grant. We've had some questions about what does that look like? Does that mean that they have to start in July 1st, which is our fiscal year, and stop in June? Not necessarily. We have businesses right now that are applying and maybe want to start in December and go for a whole year's time frame and finish up in next December. And that's okay. A year's time frame, you could support an intern that's working part-time. Each internship grant is eligible up to 1,040 hours. If they're working full-time, that gives you 26 weeks of time that the internship grant could cover. But if they're working part-time, you're allowed to ask for up to a year. Hopefully that helps. And then if you have any that are still active from last fiscal year, then this fiscal year you would be eligible for the remaining number. So if you had 2 that you asked for last fiscal year and they're still active and still going, then you would be eligible for 4 more in this fiscal year. So hopefully that helps answer those questions, but if you need more clarity, we'll bring that up in the question timeframe. The last grant, just a real quick high-level overview of the pre-hire and pre-obligation grants. So the pre-hire grant is really meant to help train up a workforce where there's a shortage of workers or skill set in the community already. And so typically what will happen is that businesses are having a hard time hiring somebody. And in order for them to be able to hire somebody in that role, that person needs to be trained and needs to maybe have a license or a certification for you to be able to hire them. What you would do is you would get with a training provider who could provide that skill set, and then they would train up the number of individuals that you and maybe some partnering businesses need. For example, we've done a grant with CNA needs. And so the training provider is the applicant of the grant, and they have their employer partners that are partnering with them. Say they have 3 or 4 different long-term care facilities that need CNAs. And they're like, oh yeah, we have we can hire 10 this year, and we have a need for 5. And so based on the need that the businesses have, the training provider is going to apply for training that number of seats to get those individuals trained and then employed within 90 days after they have completed that training. It is an application that would involve the training provider, the partnering businesses. It would also involve their local workforce center and their local economic development entity that are also supporting that there's a shortage of workers with that skill set and that training needs to occur. That grant, the pre-hire and the apprenticeship grant, I verify the eligibility components of the application, but I actually also take that to the Workforce Development Council, who reviews the application and its merits, and then they make a recommendation to the director on whether we approve it or not. And then the director makes that final decision. Again, with this grant, we do have the rules here, so I would encourage you to go ahead and take a look at those to see if that's a fit for what your needs are. We also have the, final report documents that will be needed for that. And again, the application is here for you to download, complete, and then email to us. The pre-obligation grant is available to economic development entities here in Wyoming that are working with businesses that are either expanding here in Wyoming and need to grow their workforce, or if they're looking to move here to Wyoming and need to build their workforce. And so the economic development entity and that partnering business would look at what their training expenses might be for them to get the workforce that they're looking for, apply for us to pre-obligate that funding to set it aside so we don't use it for anything else. And then if that gets approved and goes under contract, then the business has the first 6 months to show that they have started that expansion or are making those moves to move here to Wyoming. And then they start utilizing that funding. They access it through either the business training grant or through the pre-hire grant to start that training and those expenses and start drawing down what we obligated and set off to the side. It gets a little tricky, and I'm happy to work with anybody directly that is interested in the pre-obligation grant to really see how it fits their needs. But that's just a really high-level overview. And again, we have the rules and the application here as well. So I just gave you guys a lot of information and walked you through a couple different things. And so we would love to open this up for questions. And I'm going to go through the chat and see if we can find some questions in there that I can respond to. So let me get in there real quick. Okay. So Ruth Anna asked about the YouTube channel. And so that was, I believe, referencing the previously recorded meetings. And I would be happy to go ahead and put that link in here as well. But yes, that is the YouTube channel that DWS offers for videos that have been recorded. So I put that in there. Let me go back to the other questions really quick. Okay, I think I've addressed everything in the chat. What kind of questions do you all have that you would like to go ahead and bring up for the group?
Hey, Sharon, can I go? I don't see a raised hand here. I'm Sri. I'm calling in from Austin, Texas. I was at the blockchain stampede a few months ago. First time in Wyoming, great place.
Wonderful.
Cool. The questions I have is we have a Delaware C Corporation. And I talked to a few university folks and the projects we are working on, some blockchain projects and legacy planning and all that. And really interested in trying to see if we can bring in some talent from the University of Wyoming. But we are a Delaware C and we have a franchise in Texas and Austin. So I'm wondering what options do we have available to take advantage of this internship program that's there?
Yes, thank you. That's a really great question. And we have had that question, especially with the pandemic and the ability for a lot of businesses to switch to remote workers. Unfortunately, at this time, we are not supporting remote workers that are working for businesses that are outside of Wyoming. So these grants were specifically designed to support Wyoming businesses. And so we are looking that you have a physical presence here in Wyoming. And then the workers that are being supported under these grants are also working in Wyoming.
Okay. So does it mean if we register as a franchise operation, does it qualify, or do the business needs to be a registered C Corp? What are the choices that are available there?
Sure. So it sounds like right now your physical presence is still in Texas. And so one of those components is that you would have to have a physical branch here in Wyoming to be able to apply for those grants. So
if I, does it require any state registration, or if I just take an office in Cheyenne or Laramie, would that qualify to having a physical office?
So you would need to be set up with the Secretary of State, Wyoming Unemployment Insurance and Wyoming Workers' Compensation, and then not just having an office and an address here, but that somebody is actually working out of that office and is physically here. Then
I see.
Yeah, so I know it's super easy to get a P.O. box address, and the being incorporated in Delaware and all of those components, but these are state funds. And so we really want to support the state businesses that are here in Wyoming. Okay.
And let's say if I move to Laramie, and then I take an office, would that qualify, or do I have to have any other, do I need to register as a franchise operations happening in Wyoming for my company?
So again, just you would need to have that physical presence. You would need to be set up through the Secretary of State and through Wyoming Unemployment Insurance and Workers' Compensation. And what their requirements are for you, I'm not as comfortable. I'm not sure exactly what they would be looking for from you for those entities, but those would be the minimum requirements.
Right. And regarding the funds, the availability, do you have a limited number of internships? Did you run out of this year, or how is the planning? I mean, if there is a demand is way too much than the supply, then I don't know how the logistics are going on.
Yeah, that's another really great question. So we do get a biennium budget that we work with from the legislature, but we also have funding from another source that we have the funding available right now. We will be looking at it pretty much because we just increased the dollar amounts for the business training grant and for the internship grant. We have had a very large interest and a large volume of applications come through. So we are looking at that closely of what we have been obligating and what we still have remaining. And so right now we do have funds available, but we will be looking at that basically on an annual basis and then on a biennium basis. And then if we need to adjust those limits, then we'll do that.
Last question on that. When is a good time? Like, is January a good time, or middle of the year, or end of the year to start this process?
So it really is based on your needs and which grant you're discussing. The business training grant, businesses are eligible to apply for training and submit that application no less than 30 days before the training starts. And so there is a time component that they need to be looking ahead at training that's coming up and get that application in with plenty of time for us to review that application. And if there's revisions that need to be made, and then the signatures that are required, all of the applications have to be finalized and approved and executed before the training starts, especially for the business training grants. The apprenticeship grant and the pre-hire grant, it's really just based on the needs of the businesses of when that training is going to start. But again, we need to allow time for the application and review process. I typically tell people with the apprenticeship and the pre-hire grants, because there's another level of group of people looking at it, I would say plan on 45 to 60 days to get that application in. And then the internship grant, again, it takes time to review and everything, but I know businesses sometimes have to get their interns started at a certain point because that person's available to start working and they don't want to lose them, or it's a summer time frame, or holiday break time frame. And so I know that businesses can hire the interns while they're doing the application, but we won't reimburse for any of the wages until the contract has been fully executed.
Okay. And it takes, like, I'm assuming, month to 2 months for the approvals?
I would allow at least that 30-day time frame. If you're able to give us some more time, then it's just that much easier for all of us to work through that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think something came in on the chat. We can have remote workers if our business is in Wyoming. Do they need to be Wyoming residents? So they don't need to be Wyoming residents. I know that we have some border states like Colorado and Idaho where people live and come over into Wyoming to work. They do need to be working in Wyoming. And so, like, if you were in Laramie and you had a remote worker that was working for you in Casper, I think that could certainly work. But we do want the business to be in Wyoming and then the workers to be working in Wyoming. Hopefully that answers your question. What other questions do we have? You're certainly welcome to put them in the chat or just raise your hand.
I have a question. So I'm looking at the internship grant, and I work in the outdoor recreation industry. We have a school for kids. It's an adventure school, a 9-month gap program, and then we have a summer program. Anyway, so I'm working with, or I've started relationships with UW and CWC for their outdoor leadership program and for their special ed programs, because that's our population. And so, and both of those programs require either an internship or a practicum piece. Is that what we need to do, is have all that lined out and then put it in the application? Or is there anything I need to know about building those relationships that would help me?
Sure. You asked a really great question, and it made me think of another component. So I'm going to answer a couple of different things. If you are partnering with them to find your potential interns, that's a great partnership that you would want to mention in your narrative. There is one component where we ask if you're partnering with an educational institute. And in my mind, that would be something that you could mention, is that you're going to be working with them to gain those interns that are working in that field, or, going in that field of interest. On the other hand, for those businesses that aren't necessarily working with colleges or universities, the intern does not have to be a student. They can be an unemployed individual that's looking to change careers. They may want to look at a different industry, somebody who just wants to do something different. And so I know a lot of times people think of internships and then it has to be a college kid or a college student that is looking for that work experience, because a lot of times that's required in their field of study, but it doesn't have to be. You do get some preference points on your application. We have a scoring rubric that we score the applications. And so if you are partnering with an educational institute, you get extra points, but it's not a requirement. In regards to your planning, you don't necessarily have to have something in place with them already and an intern already identified. You're really just applying for the opportunity to host an internship opportunity, and you can lay out everything you envision it to be and what you're hoping to accomplish and submit that application. And then you can hire that intern after you've been approved for the grant. So you don't have to have all your ducks in a row before the application. You just have to have a plan and have it all thought out and then put it into your narrative.
Okay. That's a big help. Thank you.
Yes. Another component that we have come across is the expectation is that these interns are hired as employees. They can be considered short-term hourly employees. But you do need to go ahead and have them hired as employees and treat them as such, and make sure that you are reporting them to unemployment insurance and workers' compensation, that you will have those employees for a certain period of time. I know that there's been a little bit of a misunderstanding when we first rolled this out. 1099 employee or 1099 workers were being looked at as interns, and that's really not the right fit for them. They do need to be hired as employees and on an hourly basis, not as a salary basis. What else can I help you with? What questions do you have? Elizabeth, it looks like your hand is up. Nope, that was me hovering over your picture. So does it sound like business training grants or internship grants might be the ones that you all are thinking about for the most part?
Yeah, I'm thinking about an internship grant. Specifically, my son's girlfriend actually just took over the Yellowstone upholstery business here in Casper, and her grandmother is training her. And so there's two of them in there that I think would make great interns, because that's actually what they're doing, is she's the master craftsman and training them. So I think this could be a good fit.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it could be. So basically who is the business owner at this point?
Well, right now it's his girlfriend. She actually owns it. We wouldn't run her as an intern, even though she's learning the ropes. It would be my son, and they have another employee that would be in. And her grandmother is the one that's training everybody.
Okay, yeah.
Doing the skills.
Yeah, that would be great. So I would say just make sure that all that information is included in your narrative, and it definitely sounds like it could be eligible.
Okay.
There was a question in the chat. Are conferences eligible for the business training? That's a really great question. Yes, with the caveat that there is a learning component to those conferences, and that it's a fit for the industry that the business is in, and that the people that are attending, the trainees, that they can show that there's a direct correlation to their role or occupation within the business and that learning. And so we just want to make sure, especially when we've increased the dollar amounts that are available for the business training grants, and I didn't cover those. I think I definitely want to go back and cover those. We are looking at the training that's being requested. And in the past, there have been times when general leadership, team building type training has been requested, and it's been more for like, oh, my whole team is going to benefit from this. And yes, we absolutely agree that those are very important training opportunities, but they're pretty general, and they're not specific to the individual's role in that industry, what they're doing. So we are taking a closer look, because the funding has increased, that the training that we're approving is the right fit for that trainee, their role in the company, the industry, and that there's a direct correlation. I don't think I covered how we changed the rules for the business training grant. We did increase those amounts that are available to the businesses. A big component was to help businesses come out of the pandemic and get some help getting their workforce trained up or retrained or corrected, or help you with those training expenses. So previously, a business was capped at $50,000 for the state fiscal year for all of their employees, and we've raised that up to $200,000 per fiscal year. We also used to cap the business for $10,000 per month, and we took that monthly component away, thinking that, you know, sometimes businesses need to spend more of their training at one part of the year and not as much in another part. So you have $200,000 to apply throughout the year whenever it best suits your needs. Within that $200,000, each of your employees are eligible for up to either $4,000 or $5,000 based on if you're in a preferred industry. And so each of your trainees, including owners, are eligible for that training budget each fiscal year. It doesn't roll over if you don't use it. It just resets and starts again, but you do have that available for training needs. What other questions do you have?
I have a quick follow-up question to that. So the conference that we're interested in sending people to is for a program. We run a farmers market. It's like a national farmers market training conference for farmers market managers. But I'm a full-time staff of our program, but we also have contract staff that kind of work on a seasonal basis. Are they eligible for something like this, or does it strictly have to be a certain type of staff? Who's eligible?
Sure, great question. So one of the components that you're going to do at the application stage is show employment verification for the trainees that you want to have go. So they do need to be either already working with you or have a letter of hire, or will be working with you at the time they're going to training. Once they have finished that training, they are required to be at least employed with you for a minimum of 45 days after that training has completed, for you to be able to start doing the final report documentation and look at that reimbursement. And so sometimes this can be impactful for businesses that have seasonal workers, because maybe they go to training at the end of the season, and they're not still employed by you at that 45-day mark. So you have to think through the timing of your employees and whether they're going to be there 45 days after the training has completed. Contractors, you know, we will certainly look at what that looks like, but if you are writing a paycheck to them as an individual, then that could potentially be eligible. If you are writing a check to their business because they're subcontracting to you as a business, then that is typically not eligible. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And all that you just said has to do with the business training grant and not the internship grant.
Correct. The business training grant is designed to help Wyoming businesses get their existing employees additional training. And then that employment component is part of the eligibility requirements. The internship grant is a short-term work experience opportunity for someone to come in and work as a short-term employee, and we can reimburse for wages. So that's the difference. Is the internship grant, we will reimburse for wages. For the business training grant, we will reimburse for the cost of the training.
So let's say that I have an employee who wants to go back to school to get their, I don't know, their disability specialist masters or something like that.
Mhm.
Would this cover that for them?
Yeah, so that is, it has a little bit of a gray area. The business training grant was not designed to help support degree seeking training. But with that being said, if there are specific courses that employee is taking, and it is a direct relationship to their position in the business and their role and what they're doing, and it's industry focused, it could potentially be eligible on a training opportunity case by case. We're not going to pay for somebody's education, because a lot of times that will require gen ed classes and outside classes and outside fees and things like that. But if you have a specific class that they're taking that you can say is directly related to what they are currently doing for you and your business, then it can certainly be looked at.
Thank you.
We have some really good questions, and hopefully by somebody else asking that's made you think of something and you're like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that before. Thank you for asking that. Anything else? Okay. Well, I'm happy to give you back the gift of time if you don't have any other questions. Again, if you would like to follow up after this and you've had time to process it and you've had some more questions, you can certainly send us an email, and anybody on my team should be able to help you out with that. If you want to set up a time to be more specific about your business and specific questions, we can certainly do that. Our job here is to help you navigate through these grants. As much as we have the information on our website and try and give you that high level overview, we totally understand there's always different scenarios. There's always specific components that, we may not have addressed. And so if you feel like you still have some questions and we didn't address them today, I am happy to set up some more time to work with you individually. Okay, well, with that being said, we'll go ahead and end up the session here. And like I said, you're welcome to attend as many of these Q&A sessions as you would like. Let other people know about them. And then if you want to go back to any of the other previously recorded sessions and go through it again, you're welcome to do that as well. All right, thank you everyone for attending. Bye-bye.